Hi, and welcome back to Old School. Today we're just going to be all over the place, and it's going to be fun and chaotic and just one of the best times. I'm so excited for today's teacher. The first guest of my first season was Bob Goff, one of my writing coaches. Well, my other writing coach, Kimberly Stuart, was going to be the first guest of my second season. And so we're recording it today, and I just couldn't be more elated. She has just become so special to me. She is an author of many fiction books and is heading into the nonfiction space. One of her fiction books, Sugar, is my favorite because the lead character is a pastry chef. And for those of you who know me, know I am as well. So it was just fun. It was fun to kind of live vicariously through that. Kim holds degrees from St. Olaf College and the University of Iowa. She is the author of 8 published novels, including the Heidi Elliott series, Act 2, Stretch Marks, Operation Bonnet, Sugar, and Heartland. She is a frequent public speaker and is passionate about helping others live great stories. Kimberly lives, plays, works, and eats lots of chocolate in Des Moines, Iowa, where she makes her home with one forgiving husband, 3 wily kids, and a black schnauzer named Scout. And while all of this is fabulous, for me, she is one of the most genuine and delightful humans I know. God couldn't have put a better writing coach and friend, I do consider her a dear friend now, into my life. And funnily enough, our humor is just so dramatically close to one another, so it makes it so that we don't startle the life out of each other or have any offense. But she is one of my most favorite humans, and especially for not having met her other than here on Zoom. But that's okay. There will be a day we are going to see each other in person, and I just cannot be more excited about a guest and hope that you will just welcome her here today and listen to what she has to say, because her information for those who want to be authors, for those who are authors, and for those who just want to be delightful people will be just more than you can handle, and we'll see what we can do to squeeze it into a time frame y'all are willing to listen to. So I would love for you to welcome to class, Kimberly Stuart.
Thank you for having me on. It's a joy to be here. My story of how I got to do the work I do is not a straight line. I'm sure you have found that in your own life, Michele, and I'm sure your listeners are the same. I did not go to school for writing. Right now, I'm a writer. I've written fiction and nonfiction. I'm a writing coach. I help with writing retreats at the Oaks, which is a retreat center right outside of San Diego, with my friend Bob, our mutual friend Bob Goff. And I am a mom of 3, one out of the house in Spain currently, studying in Spain, and then I have two high schoolers as well. So I was a Spanish and ESL teacher out of college, and I loved that. I loved that work. That's how I have my...
How interesting.
Oh, well, I don't know. Have you met Spanish teachers? They're a little weird. So I don't know. Interesting is a nice way to say it.
I'm not going there because I already said in the intro that you and I have a similar sense of humor and haven't managed to shock one another yet.
Well, let that be today. Yeah, so it would drown. That's right. Watch it go. Yeah, so that was I'm a firstborn female. And so I loved writing. I loved creativity. My mom is actually a professional musician. I was comfortable in that realm of kind of creative work, but I'm also super responsible. So the idea of writing as a career sounded absolutely insane. There's no way. That's like saying you want to tap dance on Broadway. I'm sure there are people who do that. I just didn't know any of them. And we so often do what is modeled for us, right? So typically when people talk about how they began or what drew them into the work they're doing, the relationships they have, the emphasis on or lack of emphasis on their own health, that usually is modeled first. So we can react to it later, but I think out of the gate, usually we do what we've seen. And I didn't know any writers. So, but I did know a lot of teachers, and I loved teaching. I loved kind of the heartbeat of a classroom and seeing what happens when people learn things and it changes them. So I loved being a high school teacher. We started having a family, and This was in the days of yore, 20-some years ago. Maybe
rode your horse into the grocery.
I put down my buttered churner and thought, I'm going to have me a baby. No, it was a time in Iowa, at least, where when we crunched the numbers, if I had stayed home with Anna or worked as a high school teacher, it was about a wash after I paid for childcare. So I chose Anna, and that was a wonderful choice for me, and I really loved it. And also, it was very different. I went from being very social and in a work environment where people had feedback and a principal that would tell me how I was doing to radio silence, just a newborn who was just a lovely, needy little...
stop.
Yeah. A lot of poop, a lot of crying, a lot of not sleeping. And I became a different person, Michele. In fact, my husband Mark is really the one who kicked this off, because he started getting frightened. And I could see in his eyes, he's like, this isn't the woman I married. Because he would come home and I'd be like, oh, just tell me everything you've ever heard in your whole life. Tell me all the stories you heard. Tell me with great agonizing detail about Stan, your patient in dental school who has an overbite. Tell me about it. And he looked alarmed, because these aren't the stories that used to capture my interest. Okay, I was usually into flossing before this time. So he was the one who said, you used to say you liked to write. How about you do that and engage that part of your brain so that you can start worrying me? So I started writing during nap time and eventually during preschool time, kindergarten time. And it was really just intended as a space for me, right? Usually these crazy dreams start just with, well, I want something, right? Or I want to see what this looks like. I ended up I entered a contest, a writing contest, and I won that contest, which sounds just absolutely ridiculous to me that someone would pay me for things that I thought up. And then I went to a writing. Yeah, how crazy is that? And then I went to a writing conference, and that was really the beginning. I met an editor who said, send me your stuff. Send me this book when it's finished. And I was pregnant at the time with my second child, and that was a very natural deadline. As my belly grew over the space bar, I knew, because I'd done this before, I was going to need to be done with the book, because nothing was going to happen once Mitch got here. So I sent in the manuscript, and that ended up to be the first 2-book contract. And it was a delightful, kind of fast road there. I've had plenty of bumps since. So the on-ramp was fast, and then there have been plenty of other times that I've wondered why in the world I didn't pick up, knitting, cross-stitching instead. Seems like that would have been a little wiser. Yeah, cattle raising. That's a little bit more expensive, but yeah. So, and through it all, I know you talk about faith on this podcast, and I would say I wish that I could tell younger me that it's okay to pay attention to the wiring that God put in me. That I spent a lot of time, and still I catch myself sometimes negotiating with God and saying, are you sure you don't want me to be more like her? Are you sure you don't want me to be, to run in the lane next to me? That seems like it would make more sense. I was just talking with a friend this morning about one wiring I have, and you share this wiring, which is humor, and just and using humor in order to connect with people. And it took me so long to see that as a gift. I spent years of writing thinking, well, the humor part is like to get me to a legit part, right? So I'll write this funny bit, but really that's not real writing. Real writing is serious, and it's a little agonizing, and it teaches people important things. And it took me about 10 years. I had multiple books in print when I finally realized in a writer's group that I was completely wrong. I had a friend in this group who wrote much more serious content. And I remember when she took her readers off, and she looked at me and pointed to the page that I had submitted to the group. And she said, this is very funny. I said, thank you. Couldn't tell by your facial expression, but that was a compliment. And she said, I need to know, how did you do this? And I paused and said, what? She said, I don't understand how you did this. Like, what did you do to make this funny? This is kind of an innocuous scene and it's really funny. I kept laughing out loud. Why? And it took until that moment, I had completely devalued a way that God had wired me. I'd thought that was a placeholder for more important things. And I got in my car that night after that meeting and I cried. And I said to the Lord, okay, fine. I give up. You're right. I'm going to say you're right now. That maybe some of the ways that you have made me aren't on-ramps to the good thing. Maybe they are the good thing.
They are the good thing. Yeah.
They are the good thing. Allowing myself to kind of steep my toes in that has been a long process, peppered with grace. And sometimes I say yes, and a lot of times I say, okay, but how about my way? And that's what gets me into trouble.
Well, I wouldn't know a lot of that because when you and I first started and you would say things in that kind of milieu, I'd be like, I have no earthly clue. What popped into my head was what came out onto the keyboard. Mm-hmm. And for me, humor has always been the defense mechanism. So as it turns out, that wiring, I guess, just kind of makes it so. I think, honestly, people would find my story hard to take if I wasn't hilarious.
Yeah, totally. No, you're touching on something really important. It's interesting that you say that it's a coping or a defense mechanism for you. It is for all of us. That's the thing, right? Like, and that you're spot on when you say we will go hard places with each other so much more quickly and authentically if we can laugh together. It's a very strange thing. I was talking with a therapist a couple of weeks ago, a good friend of mine, and she said, I was talking about humor, and she said, oh no, what you're talking about is completely biologically sound. And she went into this explanation of how the physical body relaxes when you laugh. But there's something that happens when we laugh and that we join together in that shared experience with people that allows us to go different places that we wouldn't have if we hadn't laughed together first. And I know that that's true. I'm glad biology agrees with me because I've seen it. Right? Haven't you seen it even in a group when you're in a church or going even to see a comedian or when people laugh together, it's like we kick down the walls between us so that we can go somewhere faster. Our good friend Bob does this all the time. He will tell a hilarious story and the next beat after the funny story kicks you in the gut with how true it is, right? He's saying to you, listen, we can laugh together so that we can go other places, deeper places together. So it's interesting that you think of it as a defense mechanism. I think of it as a defense cutter downer, which is a very technical writing term.
Terminology there, but yes, because like there's that surface tension when I'm, the minute I say out loud, say in various small groups I've been in with women or co-ed, the minute I say something about what's happened in my childhood, people are aghast. And the funny part is a fair percentage of them have walked through it too. They're just shocked that I'm saying it out loud.
Said it. Yeah.
And so then the humor, I guess, defense mechanism for me, I mean, not to protect me from somebody else doing it, but to protect them from being so pitiful and hurtful for me.
Interesting.
Because
that's interesting.
I have never needed that. I honestly believe, and that it's so, as you and I have tried to work through my hook and my summary, but that's what I mean, is from the first beating, I feel the Lord gave me all of that, gave me the mental capacity and the emotional to know how to work that tension between that hard and the way to release that. And biologically makes even more beautiful sense.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's an escape hatch for us in a lot of ways, not an unhealthy one. Yeah. I mean, we can turn any escape hatch into an unhealthy escape hatch. But, when Solomon says laughter is medicine, I agree. I think he's spot on.
I'm a doctor. I think that a PhD.
Exactly. And that's a beautiful put into us by the hand of God, a coping mechanism to help us navigate how really hard life is. Now, obviously, I'm not saying all you need to do is to laugh through suffering. That's a definite no.
Right.
But I think anybody listening would be able to pinpoint times when they laughed completely inappropriately at a funeral or in a somber moment in church, and you cannot get it together. And I think part of that is the body's reaction to, I can only handle so much hard and so much depth and so much weight. There has to be a release. And one of those releases, I think, is laughter.
It for me, it's constant. I mean, like, even now, if I'm going through something hard, I have these few, well, maybe there's way more than a few instances throughout my life that pop into my mind, that there were instances that made me laugh till I was in pain and crying. And it was such a release. And it's so funny which ones I don't even choose. I don't know what you call it, consciously choose which one of those I'm going to grab. It's funny which one, because there was a funny incident with my ex-husband in our store, our GNC, we own franchises, and he answered the phone and was talking to this guy, and I was busy straightening the bottles because we were about to close, and he says, "We're real hecklers about that kind of thing," and I got the giggles. So
that's not quite what he wanted to say. Yeah.
Stickler. And he was up by the front, and there's a bunch of protein bars in a rack, and he's bitching on
now who's the heckler? That's hilarious.
But it's just little, I mean, so bizarre. Like, sometimes it's Yogi Berra kind of goofy things.
Right.
I don't know what. I feel like that episode of Seinfeld with the Pez dispenser, just inappropriate constantly. And so social media has made that very fascinating for me, because I feel like there are times when I want to say something where something that got said just makes me belly laugh, and I want to let them know. And I think the person who said it would totally get that I'm joking when I say it, but I don't think when you watch the comments of the other people, they're just off base.
They won't.
No.
Yeah. That's a funny thing about writing humor. I mean, that's kind of a specific lane, but we've all had texts, right? Text messages where you think, oh no, that was supposed to be funny. And the person writes back and is like, "Are you okay? Are we okay?" Yeah, I'm real okay, but you're not. So writing and humor, it's like, what time did you send this text? But that's again, like, using that gift in a way that connects with other people, even that, right? Even something so innocuous as laughter, words are super powerful. And so there's a separate, I think, muscle that I use in writing humor that I maybe don't have to do in public speaking, or I don't have to do in a podcast, or I don't have to do in a live event, because written words, you got to really build some trust with the reader that you're not making fun. Or if you are just making fun of you.
Yeah, because that layer, it's a delicate layer of offense. And I get that most people who've gone through what I've gone through aren't where I am. I mean, none of us are all in the exact same spot.
Right.
But they aren't where I am. And so they can feel like I'm maybe trite. And so that's why I'm trying to be very careful. I don't honeycode or don't want to change my story. But I also don't want them to think that there's just some little churchy answer that is going to come out and they're going to all be happy.
Not helpful.
Nor do they want a stand-up comedian, totally running the show either. So
no, we're always reading the room, hoping to read the room better and better.
Exactly. Okay, so all right, you've written some books, and how does Bob and you and the coaching and that ministry come together?
Bob and I were friends for a while before the coaching happened. So we met at a speaking engagement. In fact, I opened for him, which was a horrible assignment that I did kick back against, because who wants to open for Bob? If you've ever heard Bob speak, he's very engaging, super funny. You don't want to be, people are looking at their watches, like.
Well, plus the case probably.
That's not racist. Absolutely. Where's the balloon guy? So he was so encouraging. He, I'd read his books and had been changed by his books. Our family really changed course after reading Love Does. And so I was kind of dreading meeting him, to be honest. I had met a few other heroes before, and it was a disappointing experience. So I just wanted a good interaction with him so that I didn't have to burn his book. And I did. I had a great interaction with him, and that just kind of developed into a friendship and kind of a mentorship from him. And he was just so generous and so kind. And then the pandemic hit, and we were all at home, and all of his whole both of us had kind of momentum. He had a lot more momentum than I did, but we had speaking engagement and all things that were out in the world, and now we were not. And so he pivoted to kind of a different coaching model that people could access from home. And he does that on his own, executive coaching, and then the writing coaching came out of that, and has been so wonderful and so fun. So we work as a team. As you know, I look at pages and kind of go into the weeds with people with what they're creating. And then Bob is the absolute best at big vision, 30,000-foot view, kind of helping put boots on the ground as soon as when the book is ready to rock. And then we also do these wonderful retreats at the Oaks that are so fun, where we get to meet people face to face. And we just I don't do a very good job in my life of putting aside time and space. And you don't have to go all the way to California for this, but putting aside time and space to really think about, what are the bigger things? What are the better things? I have a very loud house. I'm giving the side eye to my schnauzer every now and then, warning him with my eyeballs, don't bark. I'm on a podcast, right? And that's pretty much the daily around here. It's so loud. Don't bark. I'm usually the one barking. So I think it takes a ton of scrappy kind of throwing elbows to remember the better thing, to be moving towards the better thing, right? To say over and over to Jesus, this is all yours. I surrender the day to you, the hour to you, the conversation to you. And Bob has been a wonderful friend, like just a ridiculously wonderful friend, and Maria too, and their kids, in reminding me over and over, what's the better thing, right? It's very easy for us to go, for me in our house, just to do the daily need. And those things have to be attended to. But if I only do daily need, I never remember the stuff that lasts, right?
Right.
I will only do dishes. Mostly what I do is dishes and toilets. And those are important things. For sure, somebody's got to do them, but that's not the better thing, right? So I would say our coaching and our experiences together have just pointed towards that. And it's just been a delight to meet so many people who are wanting the better thing. For me, the better thing is Jesus. Asking him over and over, what are you up to? Right?
Right.
How can I align what I'm doing with what you want for me? Because I've got a lot of ideas, and I keep submitting my agenda requests to him. And pretty much 99.9% of the time, he's like, that's so great that you think that would be great. Also, I have a better idea. And usually it's a bigger idea, better, longer lasting, some legacy peppered in there. And also you won't go insane and hate your family. Like his ideas are better, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think he has a suggestion box despite our trying to cram stuff in there. I was just telling.
If he did, I would stuff that thing.
Stufful.
Yeah.
I was just telling a young lady I was doing the podcast with the other day that, he gives me, really, honestly, I don't even think it's a full day step ahead. He told me the man he had for me was at a Starbucks nearby here.
Yeah. I'd go there.
Trolling them and examining.
You'd be arrested. Yeah.
I try and mix it up. And it has taken me, I'm 61, it's taking me all this time to learn that instead of going to him and going, here is what I want to do, I want your blessing on it, because clearly I wasn't going to write a book. I wasn't going to do a podcast. And I sure as heck don't want to go speak. But guess where I am?
And guess what you would miss out on? That's the beauty of it. You'd miss out on and you're speaking, all the things that you're doing that are so fun that make you really want to cry of fear. Those end up to being so great. My friend Jamie Nato is such a wonderful speaker and so funny, and she gets so nervous. She brings on stage sometimes things to put under her armpits to capture the nervous sweat. Like, we feel like that. This is normal. It's normal to feel nervous about the big thing, but the big thing's the best. The small big things are the ones that stretch and grow and force. And I don't think that's some like psychobabble drivel. It's all throughout scripture, right? It takes you 25 seconds in Genesis to meet Abram, who's perfectly comfortable and just doing great financially. And what does God say? No, you got to leave this. You're going to go to a place. I'm not even going to tell you where it is. And I think the subtext there is saying, because you would wig out, Abe, right? I'm not going to tell, I'm going to go, I'm leading you to a land I will show you. It's all over scripture. There's no Google. There's no GPS action, right?
We got no GPS.
No, it's so infuriating and also just the best.
It really is. And he knows me, and I joke that we've dispensed with subtlety. I tell him, throw open the doors he wants me to go through, flaming seraphim in front of the ones he doesn't.
Right.
And I just seriously would redirect because it would freak me out. But
totally,
he has literally my entire life been my provider and my comforter. Yeah. And since my divorce, it is, if it's possible, I don't think his love is possible to get more, but exponentially understanding maybe that's it. It's not that he loves me more or he's giving me more direction. I'm like finally letting it seep in, and I'm pressing into him that, okay, you have always provided for me. So there's nothing gonna work together for good, because that's your promise for me. I'm
you roll.
Stepping out, and I'm putting my heart out there, and you're gonna make sure that this can't be, it won't be a bad thing. This is you and me, kid.
Right. Yeah, there's this great beat in the Psalms where the psalmist says that the word is a lamp by his feet and a light to his path. I think we sang that. Pretty sure that's an Amy Grant song that I sang full volume in the 80s. But as I've gotten older, I've realized what a kindness that is. Mm-hmm. Your word is a lamp. It's just a light in front of my feet. I can just see the next step. It is not a floodlight. Your word is a fully lit football field. No, it's just a little tiny lamp that gives me little tiny step, and that is all I need, because that's all I could handle. What a mercy.
Literally all I can handle. In fact, just like I heard somebody saying on a podcast the other day that we weren't designed to hear all of this that's going on. And I think you even did a post like that. And I agree, because it is so overwhelming. It's overwhelming when it's an election year and you feel like, what can I do in one little vote and this and that? And what can I do about sex trafficking and human trafficking? I'm just one person, all of that. And it can crush you and paralyze you. And I feel like his guidance for us is the same way. His ways are so much higher, and he can give us immeasurably more than we ask for, but he knows we need it in teaspoons, not in gulps,
Right.
And this last year, 2023, and now this year, in my opinion, are probably already been 2 years, best years of my life in regard to my truthfully listening in to the heartbeat of God and what I'm supposed to be doing. And even if it's scary. Now, when I get scared, I'm sure you're going to be thrilled you heard this. Okay. So in my 20s, I competed in bodybuilding.
Yes.
So I was walking out onto a stage with about as much clothing as a cocktail napkin to cover my entire, important part.
Terrifying thing.
So
are brave.
I'm standing there, and I feel like, honestly, that I need the restroom.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Honestly, you do. Mm-hmm. That's a good way to feel it.
And I'm standing there, and the guy and this is my first competition. Second competition, I felt the same way, but I was a little bit better. But I'm standing there, and I go, I have to do the restroom. And he goes, no, you don't. And I go, yes, I do. And he goes, no, you don't. There's no way you've eaten enough in the last 2 days before this competition.
Funny.
He goes, we're just freaking out. He put his hand on my back and just goes, go ahead.
Oh, was that the right thing? Could you hold it?
I didn't have to go. He wasn't wrong. I was lucky if I had eaten what? Because back then they were kind of stupid. They didn't realize that you could still keep eating protein. It was the carbs that you didn't want filling you up until the day of the show. So I didn't need to. I was just, my body was just over adrenaline.
Right.
And, but it was hilarious because I thought, I'm just going to poop down my leg.
That's not hilarious, Michele. That would have been distinctly not hilarious.
Well, you know what? Though, in that particular show, I was in the middle of the pack. It was my first show, so it would have made me stand.
You would have. In odor as well. You would stand alone, I think.
So for me, walking out onto a stage but having to speak, even if I was in a muumuu, freaks the life out of me. Well, I wouldn't want to compete either right now because that would freak the life out of everybody. But I know I'll get there. I did have that little speaking engagement in Hawaii, and it wasn't a bunch of people, but I think the Lord, again, knew that's what I needed. If he'd have
the teaspoon
shoved me out there like that guy to a couple hundred people, who knows? But that may be next because I have a couple of people I'm talking to about some stuff. So
I'll give you exactly what you need.
Exactly.
Not much more, but just exactly. Yep.
So you said, and I didn't see, so maybe I didn't look in the right places, but the nonfiction, you are coming out with something nonfiction now, right?
Yes.
About grace.
April. In April, yep, it's called Star for Jesus and Other Jobs I Quit. Rediscovering the Grace That Sets Us Free. So it's a bunch of personal stories that have been a long time coming and a long time learning. And the through line is the grace of God. I'm very good at telling God that I would rather earn my way. And he is very good at saying, you can't. Then down. So,
I hate to tell you, but you will not be getting an A in that class.
oh my gosh, I love A's so much. And yeah, not possible. He already stamped that card, full, paid in full, all finished. So it's been so fun to write, and it's been so fun to talk about. I'm just starting to chat about it because I've got a couple months still till it comes out. But it's been really lovely remembering those stories, and also very scary. In a fiction, in a novel, if you get sick of a character by like chapter 4, you can just reroute or kill them off. And there are all real people in this book, so there's no killing off of those people or me. I'm also a character in the book, I guess, and there's no way to make me be smarter earlier on. But I loved writing these stories. It was just so delightful. Once I started picking around in the stories of my growing up and all the way to now, grace is everywhere. I mean, just this unmerited favor. It's such a familiar word to us that I think we forget the power of it. So when you see
that's when we use the word awesome.
Yeah.
Understanding the true awe is like entering the throne room of God or his presence to pray. And instead we'll call a hot dog awesome or the
for sure.
Kansas City Chiefs or whatever.
Totally. Yeah. No, I think when we see a hashtag with that word, or if we see it embroidered on a towel at TJ Maxx, we know we need to look again. If it's so everywhere that I can have a candle and a pillow that says grace, I think we just have to look again. It's beautiful. It's just absolutely gobsmacking. And there are just so many evidences. I hope these stories make people laugh. Again, I think that's a superpower that we don't tap into enough as listeners. And I hope they cry a couple times. But mostly I hope that they kind of look through their own packet of memories and start to identify the grace that was there all the time. John writes about God giving us grace upon grace. It's not stingy, right? I come from a Dutch family, and the Dutch are known for their frugality, we like to say, or stinginess, other people like to say. God does not go Dutch on grace. He doesn't. He doesn't ask you to go halfway. He's got the whole thing covered, and you have grace upon grace, and it's just so beautiful to take another look at that word.
That is my word. I don't know that you worry about my social media, but every year from like 12 years ago, a girlfriend asked for our word. We all did Bible study together. And she asked for our word for the year. Like, where did we feel like the lane the Lord was putting us in, what was coming? And maybe even better, what did we need the most of? Yeah. And every year he has been faithful to around somewhere between October and December start revealing that to me. And this year it was grace. And what was interesting is when I go to look up the meaning or go to kind of drill down on my life and how grace has been involved. And two definitions came up together. Was his unmerited favor and blessing, but then also an elegant presence. And I was like, isn't that a beautiful display of like a soft and gentle spirit that the Lord wants us as women? And I'm not saying not as men, but I'm just saying as women, that grace, you don't hear that used about women anymore. And I'm not saying that it has anything to do with actual beauty or, how you walk a runway, but just in how you carry yourself.
Internal posture.
Yes. And he always never fails to show me, even through something as evil as Google.
Can be redeemed.
Yep. Yes. Because even though Google won't acknowledge Christ's birthday on the little Google sign, he will let me get in there and get the information the Lord is trying to bless me.
That's awesome.
Now, okay, so what is the name of it again? Because by the time this episode comes out,
it'll be out. Yeah. Star for Jesus. And then in parentheses, and other jobs I quit. So, Kimberly Stuart, thanks. Thank you so much for having me, Michele. It's been delightful to talk with you. You know I adore you.
I adore you too. I do have one last thing I ask everybody.
Yes,
So,
love it.
I ask everybody, what is that one thing? And I know the older we get, there's probably a bunch, but the one thing that you wish you had known sooner or someone had told you sooner?
Yeah, there's more than one because I'm elderly now. Let's see. I'd say the one, if I had to pick one today, okay, this is today only. I wish that I had known earlier that I am already given all that I need to build something beautiful. I think I spent most of my life thinking I had to get to the next stage to finish this graduation and then another graduation and then another graduation after that, or wait till my kids are a little bit older, or wait till, and the whole waiting is a complete doppelganger or the real thing. So legacy and faithfulness are important to me. It's important to me that I use what I have well, and I kind of can get up in my head deciding, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? And I think I wish I would have known earlier that it's already done. That's already done. I've already been given this beautiful legacy in Jesus. He says right away, you're my kid. That's the end. Now let's go have an adventure together. So I wish I would have known that earlier. And I hope I'm helping my girls and my son to know that earlier than their mother did.
That's awesome. I think you definitely display that. And I don't know that the Star for Jesus is a job you actually quit, because you blessed my heart. And as only I know, when we go out into the world and into humans, someone who is allowing that grace to flow through freely. So you have been such an incredible blessing to me. I'm going to start crying. You're one of my favorite humans, and I've never met you. I can't wait to meet you. I'm going to figure it out. I don't know if I'm going to end up at a speaking thing. Can't afford the Oaks right now.
I would love to meet you in person. I already feel like, we've had some pretty good talks, Michele. So I feel like we've definitely met, but you're right, we haven't been in the same room. So that needs to happen soon.
People who've met me don't, for sure.
Well, right back at you.
We'll leave the neti pot out of it, but no.
Oh my gosh. All right, days.
Well, this was really so awesome, and I'll do the outro and let you get going. But yeah, I'm so grateful to you and Bob for all you've done for me, and that I know that you're on my team.
I could not cheer any louder if I tried. I would get hoarse. So just adore you. Thank you for having me on Old.
Thank you, dear. You have a fabulous day.
You too.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming to class today, and I especially loved having my writing coach, Kimberly Stuart. She has just become a friend and is such a gem in my life. She doesn't, blow smoke or anything. She loves me, but she tells me, the truth and like it is, and has been such an inspiration and just a joy to have in my life. We have a similar sense of humor, and for those of you who know me, that can be not necessarily well received everywhere. but she and I receive one another very well. So I just want to thank you all. If you want to connect with her, or if it might be interesting to you to want to have she and Bob as your writing coaches, all of that connection information will be in the show notes. She had a book come out recently, and A Star for Jesus, and I just can't wait. It is releasing soon. It'll release by the time this episode gets dropped, and so I hope you all run and get it, because she is just fabulous, and I love her writing, and I love the way she speaks, and that's how she writes. So all of her connection stuff will be in the show notes, and so will mine. I would love it if you'd make your way over to whatever platform you watch Old School on and give a rate, review, download, subscribe, whatever it might be. And absolutely love if you'd like to connect and give me some feedback. So I want to thank you all for coming to class today, and class dismissed.